but U.S. setting a trap. Like, this is so crazy how the U.S. is like, you know what type of bully you gotta be to be like, this is U.S. is like a kamikaze bully. Like, I'm gonna be at the top of this shit, or no, but everybody dies, and that's essentially our foreign policy. But let me read this: U.S. military setting the theater for war with China. In a remarkable frank interview with the Financial Times yesterday, the top U.S. Marine general in Japan declared that U.S. NATO successes against Russia and Ukraine were a product of advanced planning and preparation,
Oh, Jesus
setting the
fucking Christ.
theater setting. You remember the Minsk agreement? That's all was theater. Remember how they just came out there, so they're alluding to that there. But setting the theater for a war in, I'm sorry, for war in military jargon. That was exactly what the Pentagon was doing in Japan and Asia, he explained, in preparation for conflict against China over Taiwan. And here's a quote, why have we achieved the level of success we've achieved in Ukraine? Lieutenant General James Byerman, I think that's how you said Byerman, asks rhetorically. A big part, I'm sorry, yeah, that was the end of the quote. A big part of it, he explained, was that after what he termed Russia aggression in 2014 and 2000, that's funny. He calls when they cooled the Ukraine Russia aggression time. That's funny how he says that, but we earnestly got, and this is another quote, we earnestly got after preparing for future conflict. This is 2014, people.
Yes.
We earnestly got after preparing for a future conflict, training for Ukrainians, pre-positioning of supplies, identification of sites for which we could operate, support, sustain operations, end quote. And now we're trying to project like we cared about Ukraine when they was planning this already, Nick.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
said
I'm
the
sorry, Nick
same
and
thing.
Rome. I forgot I'm everybody there.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Go ahead.
dude, you can't. You honestly believe the U.S. gives a motherfucker about the people in Ukraine? You are out of your mind. If the United States cannot get anything out of it, they're not putting anything into it. Same reason why they don't give to their black communities in their own state, in their own country, because they were damn
No, that
sure.
is true.
Look, we did nothing but fund war, fund fascism, fund death. When is it? Do we stop and take a look in the mirror and say, maybe the government is lying, and maybe I'm a goddamn fool for believing these people? We just got out of a war with Afghanistan. We're still in the war with the Middle East. I don't care what nobody say. We're still in these wars that was based on lies. Based on lies. We use nuke. We use a nuke based on a lie. So now is the government telling me the truth? Now do they actually care? Or is it that you've been programmed to hate Russia so much that you just don't even give a fuck who, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even give a fuck about the deaths and the lives, you know what I'm saying, that's being destroyed. Oh, I care about the people of Ukraine. So let's make these children soldiers to go fight one of the toughest, strongest armies that we have on the earth today. You people are psychopaths.
I'm glad that you did the story, CJ, because this is almost like, I don't know if you even realize, but this is almost like a sequel to a story that we did before. This is the planned aggression by NATO against China. And I'm gonna share you guys a few headlines, and I can get back to that story if you want.
Yeah,
CJ.
absolutely. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna just interject these here real quick because I had a few things I want to say. This is a story that we covered before on how the United States pretty much runs NATO. They're the largest uh, contributor to NATO. They pretty much run their political machine. And you had the United States that put a lot of pressure on other neighbor NATO countries to become more anti-China. And there was a debate over this because now the United States, under Joe Biden, policy is becoming so unhinged that there's some people in NATO that were starting to question, like, wait, I thought the number one enemy was Russia. What, now it's China? So now I'm gonna read this part. Now we covered this before, CJ. Now I'm gonna read the update. And you provided a good one as well. It said, indeed, looming over the entire debate is the question on whether China even merits so much attention right now. So I want you guys to understand this is not even coming from the perspective of a leftist. These are people who are largely imperialists, largely capitalists, Western chauvinists, but they were just questioning the strategic move of going after China, right? So it's not like a like based on principle, like for us.
Oh, morals. Yeah, it's not a moral reason.
That's gonna make me money.
So
How's
now,
gonna make me money? I'm gonna lose money.
So when you understand that, that shows you how unhinged the U.S. neocons are, the Anthony Blinkens, the Lloyd Austins, right? So let me continue this statement. They had questions about whether China even merits so much attention right now. War is raging in NATO's backyard. Russia is not giving up their revanchist ambitions. You see the perspective? But so even in their perspective, NATO is insane. Now, this is this guy, Joseph Borrell, who I wonder where his position is now. Wonder what they threatened this guy with, because he's saying shit that you would never, ever hear a U.S. leftist say. Remember this guy? We covered him before. He said NATO was not conceived for the operations in the Pacific Ocean. It's a North Atlantic alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph, I've seen his name so many times, I'm starting to recognize, like, this guy, he like this guy in NATO that's like, you guys are going crazy. I don't know his story. I mean, I didn't look into this guy. But what's the follow-up? You already show how NATO definitely escalated their war against China. Look at it. Now this is the update. NATO nations grow more receptive to U.S. pleas to confront China.
The fuck y'all gonna do?
So the neocons in NATO won, as CJ is explaining as well. Look at this tweet by Ursula von der Leyen, one of the most unhinged imperialists that has a major position of power, president of the EU. And she do this tweet that's anti-Russia. I'll breeze over that. It says, since the start of the Russian war in Ukraine, EU-NATO cooperation only grown stronger. Today, with the new joint declaration, we bring our partnership to the next level. Some bullshit. But this is the important part. Look at this. Europe's security is under threat. This is reflected in the wish of Ukraine and Israel to join NATO. The Russia threat is the most immediate, but not the only one. We witness China's increasing attempts to reshape the global order to its benefit. What? Who are you talking to? CJ, who is she talking to? The Europe security is under threat.
Who is she talking to?
She cites Israel and Ukraine, and she's talking about how China is reshaping the global order, so we must resist. And these are the people that the dumb left says is a defensive alliance. You guys see how crazy this is? But go ahead. I know
the whole thing about NATO was they was not supposed to move east. That was the whole fucking thing. And now you got Putin looking out his fucking curtains, looking in the backyard like, what the fuck is NATO doing over there?
Right.
Oh shit, we're killing Russians. Oh well, let's protect our people. He didn't come when they first called, but Putin is only there because of the people of Ukraine. That is a fact. Because of the leaders of Ukraine at that time called on them to try to stop the shelling of their people. That is a fact. Putin went over there and stopped the shelling. Then the U.S. was like, yes, this is a great time. This is a great time to start this motherfucking war because we've been trying to overthrow his punk ass for years now. Come on now. And let's look at it like they call Putin a dictator, but our people stay in power just as well and just as long as Putin. Bro, and not only that, they jump up ranks. They would jump, like I said, when they lose these elections, when these rhinos and these fucking dinosaurs lose their fucking elections, that's not a loss, that's a break. Because they're gonna go run for a higher position, and more likely they're gonna fucking get it because you all are idiots, all you voters. And shout out to Chrissy who made these fucking these edibles.
Let me finish reading here, and then we can kind of close this with your last comments. But there's another quote. There's a lot of quotes in here, and I picked this. I wanted to do. I was like, you know what, we could save this for tomorrow, but I want to have it for because I know this is a story typically we cover on the Nick and CJ show. But I wanted Rome because a lot of people don't know. Like Rome is pretty freaking well versed on foreign policy. People don't know that he is, but Anyway, and JB also, but Rome, a lot of people may know about JB, but people don't know Rome is pretty well versed in foreign policy. But let me continue with this quote. We call the setting the theater. We call that setting the theater, and we are setting the theater in Japan, in the Philippines, in other locations. End quote. In other words, the U.S. is setting a trap for China by goading it into taking military action against Taiwan in the same way that it provoked Russia. It was just trial. The Ukraine thing is just a trial for the bigger show. Into invading Ukraine from the U.S. backed coup in 2014.
Who is saying
that toppled a pro-Russian government. Let me go back up to his name. Lieutenant General James Berman.
History repeats itself. And one thing that the U.S. government is trying to take advantage of is the weak spot that Ukraine is. Russia has been invaded through Ukraine before, and they're trying to use that back door. They're trying to use the back door that Ukraine is to get to there. And it took a lot of brainwashing. It took a lot of funding. It took a lot of shit. But they are there now. They're not going to get what they want. They're not going to win against Russia. But it just sets up the next step. Now, like we know Ukraine, they're dead. Their armies are dead. This isn't them on the ground. We have Americans on the ground. We have people from the UK on the ground. We have people from Australia on the ground. We have boots on the ground. But now it's going to set the tone for the real war. Because right now, Russia, their army isn't even on the ground right now. It's private militaries right now that's fighting NATO. And once all this smoke clears, the shit really going to hit the fan. And it's going to be NATO versus Russia, the real Russian military. But y'all see.
And you have a lot of people on the NATO left who made the argument of like, well, you guys say that the West is amassing NATO troops and Russian border. That's just hysteria. Of course, the West wouldn't do anything to Russia. And they just ignore the fact that literally under Donald Trump, as they were calling Donald Trump a Putin puppet, they were launching cyber attacks in Russian infrastructure. The CIA was. I reported on this a long time ago. That you had the West literally attacking the Russian financial infrastructure with cyber attacks, military bases pointing all at it, them openly oppose them geopolitically, trying to overthrow their allies, and then you got John Western shoulders like, oh my God, why would Putin be nervous with NATO encroaching on his border? Motherfuckers in the West would do way more with way less provocation, and they know it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a point. Chip Walker says, can you imagine a Chinese invasion of Taiwan as a very small island would be overrun by millions of soldiers within a day? The idea that Taiwan could stage a Ukraine-like resistance is cray. Just to add some context. So if China were to invade, quote unquote, invade Taiwan, that would be like the United States invading Alaska. Invade? How can you invade one of your own states? Exactly.
And to Rome's point earlier, and then I'll continue to read. When Rome was making up the historical point of where Russia was attacked through Ukraine, historically, it's the same game with Taiwan and China. Literally, this article and some of the other things we've covered, Nick, in the past, like this is literally a plan. Like this is not like this. They're falling into this. They didn't fall in, just like they didn't fall into Ukraine. This thing they're going to be doing with China, or this thing that they're doing with China. This is a long-term plan. And this guy, Lieutenant General James Berman, is the one that's giving this plan away in this particular article. So search him. I'm curious to find out what other things this guy has said. But let me continue with the article. Lieutenant General Berman is commanding general of the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, or 3 MEF, and of Marine Forces Japan. Significantly, the Marine Expeditionary Force is the only Marine crisis response force permanently stationed outside the U.S. Wow, I didn't know that. In other words, Bierman, maybe that's how you say it, Bierman and his Marines would be on the front lines of any U.S.-led conflict with China. Basically, this guy is, if anybody knows what he's talking about, this is the guy. This is the guy who will be on the front lines of any U.S.-led conflict with China, Nick. When you said, who is this guy? This is the guy saying this.
This is so crazy. What's crazy is
we got clowns in the freaking government is gonna kill us, man.
America already did simulations of war. Like they already did some simulations of war, how it would turn out versus United States versus China. We lost 18 fucking times. If your own strategies is telling you at the end, you're gonna lose. You have no manufacturing. You have no factories anymore. You cannot come back from a nuclear war. You have nothing. China has it all. You sold it all to them. And if China wanted to, if they wanted to play ball, man, if I was the president or a leader in China, I'd be like, you know what? Cough up that fucking debt. You want war? You want to put sanctions on me? You want to put trade blocks on? Cough up that fucking debt that you owe me.
And that was 100, like the whole U.S. China thing. This is what neocons don't understand. That's what the liberals that call for war trying to understand. They don't understand the global implications that this will cause. The reason why China backed down and didn't do anything, despite Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan and the United States shipping weapons to Taiwan, because they were like, the United States lost their fucking mind. A war with China, especially at this point where us being the two largest global powers and China dominating global trade, will lead to a global calamity. Other countries will be forced to join because you're talking about countries' economy that will be destroyed because of the trade destruction between the United States and China. So then what side do you think Africa is going to take?
China.
What side do you guys think these countries are going to take?
China.
You're seeing it with BRICS. You're seeing it.
Yeah.
You're seeing it.
Why do you think people say this is going to be World War III? It's going to be World War III because other countries are going to have to respond. And a lot of them are not going to pick the United States. So go ahead, CJ. It's going to be.
Let me finish this out so I can take off. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
As the Financial Times explains, the 3 myth is a quote at the heart of the sweeping reform of the military corps. I say corps. Its focus is being shifted from the war on terror in the Middle East to creating small units that specialize in operating quickly and clandestinely in the islands and straits of East Asia and the Western Pacific to counter Beijing's anti-access area denial strategy. And let me just read this last part here. The U.S. plans for war against China, known as Air-Sea Battle, Evage Sage, massive air and missile assault on China's military bases and strategic industries supported by warships and submarines. The Pentagon has been increasingly concerned about China's military abilities to defend its territory and secure neighboring seas. Quote, anti-access area denial with its own missiles and Navy vessels. Amazing. I'll pass it to anyone.
I got two. Oh, go ahead, JB. Go ahead.
No, I have another analogy. You ready? So the United States going against China is like the United States being this dude that works out, but he only does chest and arms day and he skips leg day every single time, right? And going up against China is like going against somebody who's trained in Muay Thai, see, Nick, who actually is conditioned their entire body, but they're also standing there with the rest of their boys ready to get at you. And so it's like, wait a minute, you're top heavy, United States. You have no critical infrastructure in order to build yourself up. Plus, you're going against a country that has 1.4 billion people, and you mean to tell me that you're going to try to take them out? Wow, you have who's going to back them up? It's going to be Russia that backs them up. It's going to be now you got Brazil under a new president, so they're going to be the ones to try to back them up. Then you're going to have a lot of African countries going to back them up. So really, does the United States really want that smoke? Because if they do, they're going to cough, because they're going to be too weak to go up against China, because China's not going to have it.
The United
Like,
States.
this remind me of that meme. It's a meme now, I should say. Y'all ever saw it when they be like, hold on, let them get up. Fight back, nigga, fight back. They all stumble them up. But this is what's gonna happen. Because not only like our arms are stretched too far. We are across the Atlantic, the Pacific, this and that. We got weapons spaced out too far to even focus on one or two wars, especially if we are going to war with two other superpowers. Like, this is
We
It's gonna be
couldn't
crazy.
even beat Vietnamese farmers. We couldn't beat Afghanistan. People using guerrilla warfare tactics.
you want to
And
know why?
in the United States, who can't even get people to sign up to the military anymore.
Because the military
They're gonna
sucks,
beat
bro.
China.
The military sucks because they only are tough when the rabbit don't have the gun. You know what I'm saying? But when ISIS start getting funny and Taliban start getting their guns and everybody start getting clapped back, these motherfuckers start running.